Hello everyone. Today we're diving into something both tender and quietly radical, the simple choices that help you live longer and actually enjoy it. After age 65, you're probably watching this while sipping lukewarm tea or scrolling through notifications that you won't respond to until tomorrow. But here's the truth. If you don't take care of a few core habits now, you might not just age, you might unravel. Dramatic, maybe, but real. You see, living long isn't about chasing green juice or moving to the mountains of Costa Rica. It's about small, stubborn acts of self-preservation that you do even when no one's watching. And I'll tell you this, if you're over 65 and you still think you're going to wing it, good luck darling. You're braver than most, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I like knowing who's listening, especially when the world feels like it's spinning a bit too fast. Now calm down, turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's begin today's journey of listening and healing together. You wake up before your alarm, not because you're a morning person now, but because your body's internal clock has finally figured out what it wants, and it's not chaos. The light is soft, the house is quiet, and your feet know exactly where to go. You're not groggy, you're grounded. There's a kind of peace in waking up without being yanked out of sleep by a blaring phone. The science backs this up, too. Studies show that maintaining a consistent wake-up time, yes, even on weekends, can stabilize your circadian rhythm, sharpen your mind, and even reduce your risk of heart disease. Who knew being boring could be so life-threatening? And here's the weird part. People over 65 who wake up early tend to report higher life satisfaction. Experts are still debating whether it's the sunlight, the silence, or just the freedom to make your coffee before the world starts shouting. But one thing's clear, you feel more in control when you set the tone for your own day. You remember the days when you'd hit snooze 5 times. When the first hour of your morning felt like trying to restart a computer from 2002's slow, cranky, and mostly frozen. Not anymore. Now, you stretch a little, maybe even smile at the ceiling. You breathe in the air like it's trying to tell you a secret. And it's not just about health, it's about dignity. Waking up on your terms reminds you that time hasn't claimed your agency. You can still choose the first moment of your day. That's powerful. That's longevity. Also, fun fact, in some regions of Japan, older folks begin their day with a warm cup of miso soup at sunrise. Not coffee, not emails, miso. Imagine starting your day with something fermented and salty and feeling better for it. Experts still argue over whether early rising helps cognition or if early risers are just naturally more organized. But between us, it's less about the hour and more about the habit. And you've got that. You wake, you breathe, you move, not because you have to, but because you want to. So tomorrow morning, when the sky turns from navy to blue and the birds make their usual dramatic entrance, you'll already be awake. Not just to see the day, but to own it. The kettle sings softly in the background. Your hands wrap around a warm mug like it holds secrets. You take a sip not because you're thirsty, but because it makes you feel anchored. The morning is quiet, like a waiting room between dreams and responsibilities. And in that hush, you think of someone. Someone who used to call just to talk about the weather. Someone who once mailed you a postcard for no reason other than to say, "I thought of you." That's when it hits you. Connection isn't just necessary. After 65, relationships aren't optional. They're survival. Studies show that seniors who stay socially connected have a 50% higher chance of living longer than those who isolate. Yep, turns out that texting your niece once a week might be the real anti-aging secret. Take that, collagen powder. You pause and scroll through your contacts. Some names make you smile. Some sting a little. You debate texting just thinking of you to someone you haven't heard from in a year. You don't, but you think about it. And thinking is where it starts. You remember the awkward coffee chat with your neighbor last month. He rambled about his lawnmower and you didn't know how to change the subject, so you just nodded. But later, he left you banana bread on the porch. No note, just bread. And somehow, that felt like a whole conversation. Social bonds after 65 are weird. They're quieter, slower, less Instagram-worthy, but they run deep. It's less about partying, and more about being seen. And here's a strange truth. Your brain literally shrinks faster without regular human contact. Like physically shrinks. Experts still debate whether that's due to stress hormones or lack of stimulation. But either way, it's the stuff of C-F. And not the fun kind. You laugh remembering your book club, that one, where nobody actually finished the book. It became a tea club, and then a gossip club, and then, when Marjorie fell and broke her hip, it became a casserole delivery support group. Connection evolves, but it doesn't disappear. You don't need 100 friends. You need a few people who remind you you're still here. People who remember your stories. People who notice if you've gone quiet. It's not about being popular. It's about being held in someone's memory. And let's be honest, making friends in your 60s and 70s weirdly feels like dating again. You're picky. You've seen things. You've outgrown small talk. But when you find someone who laughs at your jokes and remembers your dog's name, that's gold. Tomorrow, maybe you'll wave at that woman who always walks her pug past your window. Maybe you'll call your sister, even if she talks too much, about her cat. Maybe you'll text your grandson and say, "Just thinking of you." That's all. Because connection isn't loud. It's not always thrilling. But it's your lifeline. And even a 5-minute chat, a shared silence, or a loaf of banana bread can remind you you're still needed. You push open the door to the porch, and the sunlight hits your skin like a warm hello. There's a chair out there, old but faithful, and when you sit, it creaks like it's saying, "Ah, there you are." Your bones respond the same way, cracking just slightly as if joining the conversation. You exhale and just exist. No agenda, no emails, no apps, just presence. This, right here, is movement, not cardio, not HIIT, not summer body nonsense. Just the gentle act of moving your body with intention. Especially after 65. You don't need a gym, you need a reason, and your reason could be as humble as watering the tomatoes or walking to the mailbox in fuzzy socks and unmatched slippers. A study you once read in a magazine at the dentist's office, don't ask why you still remember it, said, people over 65 who walk at least 30 minutes a day have a 40% lower chance of developing mobility-related issues. That's not a suggestion. That's a life hack dressed as common sense. Experts still argue about whether it's the walking itself or the independence it represents, but does it matter? You still walked. You remember last Thursday when your knee made that noise like someone twisting bubble wrap, and you paused halfway through your backyard stretch, unsure if you should laugh or call someone. You chose laughter, and then you kept stretching anyway. Because stillness is good, but stagnation is sneaky. Here's a strange fact most folks don't know. Your muscles still respond to strength training. Even in your 70s and 80s, it's not about becoming a silver-haired Hulk, though. That would be a good Instagram handle. It's about being able to stand up from the toilet without wincing. Now that's real strength. You keep a set of resistance bands next to the remote. You think about using them more often than you actually do, but hey, thinking about it counts for something, right? And when you do remember, you always thank yourself after. Even if it's just 5 minutes of shoulder circles while the kettle boils. Your neighbor, Ron 73, bad back. 2 cats started joining you on your walks last month. You don't talk much, just the occasional look at that cloud, or these birds don't pay rent. But the company? It's medicine. Sometimes you two shuffle more than you stride. But that rhythm becomes its own kind of therapy. They say sitting is the new smoking, but whoever they are, they've never seen you slowly rise from a recliner with the determination of a gladiator. You know what's harder than quitting cigarettes? Getting out of a La-Z-Boy without making that involuntary oof noise. You've mastered both. The truth is, your body isn't the same. But it's not broken. It's adapting. And when you move it gently, consistently, you're sending it a message. We're still in this together. So tomorrow, even if your joints sound like an old haunted house, and your sneakers mysteriously shrink overnight, why do they always feel tighter in the morning? You'll still lace them up. You'll still walk, even if it's just from one side of the living room to the other while talking to the microwave. Because movement, at your age, isn't about calories or competition. It's about staying available for your own life. You want to reach the top shelf, hug your grandkid, pick up the cat without groaning like a cartoon grandpa. So you move. Every day, maybe not far, maybe not fast, but forward. You open the fridge, and stare like it's a puzzle. Leftover something, a half-eaten apple, too many condiments. Your stomach's not growling, but your body's whispering, fuel me better. So you pull out the eggs, spinach, and a tomato that's doing its best to survive. Breakfast doesn't have to be fancy, it just has to work. This is where the quiet revolution begins. Nutrition after 65. No crash diets, no expensive powders shipped from some influencer's closet. Just food that helps you wake up clear-headed and sleep without drama. Science has a lot to say here. As you age, your metabolism slows, your muscle mass shrinks, and your vitamin absorption. Not what it used to be. Calcium, B12, vitamin D, they start acting like shy teenagers, refusing to show up unless invited very loudly. And yes, the experts still argue over whether you should go Mediterranean, flexitarian, or just eat like a squirrel with a grocery list. But one thing's for sure. Junkin means funk out. You remember when you used to skip meals and call it intermittent fasting. Now, skipping lunch means you forget why you walked into the garage. You laugh, but it's real blood. Sugar stability becomes the unsung hero of graceful aging. You don't need a nutritionist to tell you that microwave pizza 4 nights in a row isn't love, it's sabotage. There's a certain pleasure in prepping something colorful. You chop bell peppers like you're painting a canvas. You drizzle olive oil with the flair of a chef who once watched one too many cooking shows. You don't even mind the cleanup anymore, it's part of the ritual. Like winding down a vinyl record. And you've learned a strange fact that no one told you when you were younger: your gut bacteria can change your mood. Yup, little microbes in your belly deciding whether you feel joyful or just meh. Experts still debate how much influence they really have, but enough studies suggest a strong gut equals a steadier mind. Makes you think twice about that second cinnamon bun, doesn't it? You remember your old friend Harold 81, always smug about his smoothies. He swore by flaxseed, like it was gold dust. You used to roll your eyes, but now, you secretly keep a bag in the pantry, just in case. And no, you don't talk about it. It's between you and the blender. Food becomes more than fuel. It becomes comfort, control, and sometimes, even community. You join the Wednesday farmers market not because the produce is cheaper, but because choosing your own vegetables feels like a protest against passivity. You smile at the memory of last week's adventure meal, a quinoa bowl that looked like birdseed but tasted like purpose. Even your cat judged you. But hey, you felt good the next day. Clear, light, like your body finally said, "Thank you for not making me fight." A brick of cheese at 9 p.m. You don't have to get it perfect, just intentional. A little more water, a little less sugar, a protein here, a leafy green there. Not because you're chasing youth, but because you're protecting your energy that buys you more time to laugh, move, connect, and remember things without squinting. So tomorrow morning maybe you'll scramble an egg, toast some whole grain bread, and throw in a few berries just for fun. Not for the likes, for your liver, because at this age, eating well isn't about fitting into pants. It's about staying sharp, staying upright, and staying around. You sit down with a fresh cup of herbal tea, the steam swirling around like ghostly memories of past adventures, as you decide it's time to challenge your mind. Today, it's not about perfecting that morning routine or savoring your homemade breakfast, it's about discovering something new. Perhaps it's learning Spanish phrases to chat with that charming neighbor, or the art of floral arrangement that turns your living room into a tiny, fragrant haven. You pull out a battered notebook where you scribble ideas for your next project, wondering, why not now? After all, your brain is just as capable of growth as your favorite rosebush in spring. It might seem odd that after 65 you'd dive into foreign languages or creative hobbies. But here's the twist: learning new things revs up your cognitive engine. Researchers have observed that seniors who engage in continuous learning not only keep their minds agile but also delay the onset of age-related cognitive decline. Imagine your brain as a well-worn car. The more you service and upgrade it, the longer it continues to run smoothly on the open road of life. And yes, you might stumble over a Spanish word or misplace a petal in your bouquet, but that's just part of the charm. You recall that quirky evening when you attended an online workshop about urban gardening while practicing a few Spanish phrases. The session was led by a lively teacher who, between showing you how to transplant basil, threw in tips like vamos a cultivar. Even if you ended up mixing up your verbs, the act of learning lit a tiny spark of joy inside you. And here's something truly remarkable. Studies show that bilingual or multilingual seniors tend to exhibit better memory retention and cognitive function. Not that you need to start speaking fluent Spanish overnight, but every little effort counts. Experts still debate whether the cognitive benefits come more from the effort of learning itself or the sheer novelty of it all, but either way, you're investing in something wonderful. Then there's that strange phenomenon. You might not have heard about the neuroplasticity surge in later life. While most people think your brain settles into a fixed routine as you age, emerging research suggests that even after your 60s, your neurons can form new connections. It's as if your mind is a vast garden, ready to sprout unexpected blooms. If you only give it a little nurturing, picture yourself arranging a bouquet. Each flower represents a new idea, a new piece of knowledge that, when woven together, creates a vibrant tapestry of experience. The experts still argue about how dramatic this boost truly is, but you can't deny the thrill of feeling your brain stretch beyond the familiar. You also remember a peculiar piece of trivia fact so out there that it almost seems fabricated. They say that some elderly people, who began learning to play an instrument well past retirement, experience a decline in brain fog almost as quickly as they conquer the chords of a new song. Think about it, you, with your gentle finger taps on the phone screen, might one day be strumming a guitar and serenading your neighbors. The idea is both hilarious and inspiring, like a scene from a modern-day fairy tale where the soundtrack is scored by your own determination. Determined to add another string to your intellectual bow, you sign up for an online class on how to create stunning flower arrangements. In this virtual space, you're not just a passive observer, you're an active participant in a learning journey that feels both calming and electrifying. You laugh softly when you inadvertently mix up the names of flowers. Is that a daisy or a dandelion? And the instructor reassures you that making mistakes is just as important as getting it right. It's all part of the process, part of the art of living fully. As you click through the slides of the online class, you notice small, delightful details that mimic a treasure hunt. Every petal, every shading of green, tells you a stories of gardeners from decades past, of landscapes transformed by caring hands. And in a curious twist of fate, the instructor's gentle accent and slow, deliberate pronunciation of Spanish words create a rhythmic cadence that parallels the soft sounds of your favorite ASMR recordings. It's a harmonious blend of culture, creativity, and self-care that feels almost meditative. In the background, you can faintly hear your neighbor adjusting his radio, classic oldies playing softly, as if to underscore this new chapter in your life. Each note of music reminds you that everything is interconnected. Your learning, your movement, your breathing, all these seemingly small details converge to form a bigger picture of a life well lived, an existence where every new thing learned is a victory against stagnation. And yet, while your heart flutters with the promise of discovery, you also remain pragmatic. You know that some days, grasping a new concept can feel like deciphering an ancient code. There are times when the frustration of trying to master a new subject makes you want to close the laptop and retreat into the safety of familiar habits. But on those days, you remind yourself, curiosity is your secret weapon against the dulling of the mind. Every stumble, every mispronunciation, every confused glance at a diagram is part of the beautiful struggle of growing older with grace. You also find humor in the idea that, while you used to think learning was for the young and the restless, now it's a privilege, a playful rebellion against the notion that aging means slowing down. Remember the sunscreen made from crocodile dung? Just a quirky reminder that as times change, even the strangest ideas can spark new trends. And like that, your mind is open to all the curious possibilities that lie ahead. So tomorrow, perhaps you'll open another page in your Spanish workbook, or rewatch that gardening tutorial one more time, not because you expect perfection, but because each step is a little victory. Each new word, each freshly pruned stem, feeds the idea that learning is not a race, but a dance that you're more than happy to join at any age. And as you close this chapter of your day's journey, you feel a serene satisfaction knowing that every new lesson is a celebration of life, a defiant stand against complacency. With a quiet chuckle, you murmur to yourself that you might not become the next big artist or polyglot, but you'll be the one who dared to learn, who dared to expand the boundaries of your mind, and that is more than enough. It starts with a slow creak in your knees and the realization that your body is no longer on autopilot. You sit, you stand, and you feel it, life reminding you that it's still very much happening, but now with sound effects. So, you stretch. Not because someone told you to, but because it feels like untangling 1,000 tiny knots you didn't know you had. Welcome to the beautiful rebellion called gentle movement after 65. You're not running marathons unless you're one of those bionic seniors on TV, in which case, please adopt us. But no, you're here, doing what you can. Maybe it's a morning walk that turns into a kind of meditation, or Tai Chi in the park next to that couple that always argues but somehow coordinates every motion. You giggle under your breath, thinking, now that's love. Your doctor used to say, just keep moving. At the time, It sounded like vague advice, like a fortune cookie made by a gym coach. But now you understand, movement isn't about calories or abs, it's about independence. The ability to get up from the floor without calling the fire department. The quiet dignity of putting on socks without turning it into a Cirque du Soleil audition. And here's the science why part. Because we promised, even light daily movement improves circulation, brain function, and mood. Walking just 30 minutes a day reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease by almost 20%. Some researchers still debate whether it's the activity itself or the consistency that matters more, but either way, it's like compound interest for your joints. You keep moving, and your body thanks you like a polite Southern grandmother with a tray of cookies. You remember that one odd fact you once read. Flamingos can only sleep standing on one leg because it takes less energy than sitting. And while you won't be doing any flamingo impressions, you do find yourself marveling at balance, how precious and overlooked it becomes as we age. You try standing on one foot while brushing your teeth, and it turns into a full core workout you didn't sign up for. There's also something to be said about dancing. Not the formal kind with steps and choreography, though if that's your thing, bless you. No, we're talking about spontaneous living room dancing. That 3-minute celebration of surviving laundry day. You crank up a song from your teenage years. Shimmy like no one's watching, because truly, no one is, and let the rhythm remind you that your body still knows joy. Even if your hips argue about it later. And just when you think exercise has to be structured or serious, you remember your friend. 84 years old. Gardens like she's in a time-lapse video. Her secret: I just never sit down too long. It's not Pilates, it's not CrossFit, it's rhythm. And rhythm, my dear listener, is the secret sauce of staying mobile. Doesn't need a pedometer. Her roses bloom like proof. Now, you're not delusional. No, aging has its limitations. Sometimes your joints sound like popcorn. Sometimes your energy dips like Wi-Fi in a storm. And yes, experts still debate the ideal intensity of senior workouts. Too little, and it's a nap. Too much, and it's a trip to the chiropractor. But the sweet spot, it's personal. It's where you move just enough to feel alive, without feeling like you need a week to recover. One of your favorite parts is that moment after movement, when the body, warmed and humming, sits still. It's like your cells are high-fiving each other. That glow isn't sweat, okay? Maybe a little it's your inner applause. The quiet victory of knowing that, while the world rushes around, you've taken a step or 5,000 toward longevity with intention. And don't even get started on yoga. You tried a class once, nearly fell asleep during the final pose. They called it corpse pose, which feels a bit dramatic for a health practice, but there you were, flat on your back, wondering if it counts as exercise if you snore through it. Still, the stretching helped. Your spine whispered, thank you, for days. You come to realize this: movement is medicine, but not in the way commercials sell it. It's medicine in the form of freedom. To bend, reach, stand tall. To greet your neighbors, lift a grandchild, chase a stubborn cat under the couch. You move not to stay young, but to honor the life you've earned. Every wrinkle, every ache, every resilient step. So tomorrow, maybe you'll stretch a little before the kettle whistles. Maybe you'll walk the long way to get the mail, or try chair yoga in the living room with that instructor who smiles like she knows all your secrets. And maybe, just maybe, you'll dance again. Not for fitness, not for tracking steps, but because it feels ridiculously good. And when your knees creak in protest, you'll smile and say, yeah, I'm still here. You don't always notice it at first, but then it hits you. The warmth in your chest, the quiet calm that settles in after spending time with someone who just gets you. It might be your lifelong friend, your daughter's quirky neighbor who insists on bringing banana bread just because, or even the rescue cat that acts like it pays rent. These aren't just people or creatures. They're your lifelines. Because by now, you've learned the hard truth. Staying socially connected after 6 is not optional, it's essential. You scroll through old photos, one-night birthdays, barbecues, blurry shots from early smartphones. Each face reminds you of a shared joke, a lost moment, a warmth that words can't quite hold. And as you sit there, you realize, humans are pack animals, even the introverts among us. Loneliness, as it turns out, is more dangerous than obesity or smoking. No joke, there's research that shows prolonged isolation increases the risk of premature death by over 25%. Yet some experts still argue whether it's the quantity or quality of relationships that matter most. Either way, isolation isn't just sad, it's toxic. You think back to that strange little science. Tidbit you once heard. Octopuses have been known to throw shells at each other when annoyed, but when they're isolated, they stop bothering. No drama, no interaction, they just fade. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? We're not so different. Without others, the world becomes quiet in a way that isn't peaceful, it's hollow. Of course, you've had moments when people exhausted you, when family dinners turned into a chaotic potluck of opinions, when the phone rang one too many times during your nap, but still you'd miss it, the noise, the mess, the unexpected laughter that bubbles up when someone brings up that one story about you and the inflatable kayak. Don't pretend you don't remember. There's something beautifully rebellious about staying connected at this stage in life. Some people assume you'd rather be alone, as if solitude is the prize you earn after decades of interaction. But you know better. You know that texting a grandchild with a perfectly timed emoji, or sitting in silence next to an old friend is what life really is. Not the errands, not the meds, not the reruns. It's the people. Even the awkward ones. You remember the weekly game night you tried to organize. You accidentally invited two people who hadn't spoken since the Reagan administration. And yet, by the end of the evening, they were laughing over a badly drawn Pictionary clue that somehow looked like a dancing shrimp. That night, something clicked. You saw how even broken connections can mend under the right light. Now, here's where it gets funnier. Studies show that seniors who maintain regular social interactions score higher on cognitive tests. We're talking better memory, sharper focus, even a stronger immune response. And no, we're not saying brunch is a miracle cure, but connecting with others might just be the most underrated prescription you'll never need to refill. Some days, it's just a wave to your neighbor while you water the plants. Other times, it's joining that bizarre but oddly delightful online book club. Even if you never finish the book, you still show up. You still laugh. And when someone mispronounces the author's name in spectacular fashion, you secretly wish you'd thought of it first. But let's be honest, reaching out gets harder with age. People move, relationships shift, and energy sometimes dips. Some friends disappear like socks in the dryer, no explanation, just gone. And yet, you still try. You send the text. You leave a voicemail. You remember birthdays, even if Facebook has to remind you. Because you understand that connection is not always convenient, it's chosen. It's cultivated. It's loved into being, and when you're tempted to just pull back. To let the world pass without bothering you. Remember this strange little truth. Trees and forests grow taller than those planted alone. They share nutrients, even warn each other of danger. Scientists still debate how deep this forest communication runs, but the metaphor stands tall. Thriving is easier when we do it together. So tomorrow, maybe you'll call someone you've been meaning to, or finally go to that silly ukulele circle your neighbor mentioned. Or just sit with someone over coffee and talk about anything, your aching knees, your favorite soup, or how nobody makes decent pie crust anymore. It doesn't matter. What matters is the we, because even now, you can feel it. Connection keeps you human, it keeps you growing. It keeps you here. It usually starts with something small. You forget where you put your glasses even though they're on your head, or you walk into the kitchen and stand there, frozen, wondering why you're surrounded by bananas and unopened mail. At first, it's funny. You laugh. But over time, you start to wonder, is this just aging, or am I turning into a living cautionary tale? Don't panic, you're not alone, and you're not doomed. The brain, like your joints or your Wi-Fi connection, needs regular updates. And after 65, it doesn't necessarily slow down, it just rewires itself. You adapt. You focus on what matters. You realize your brain is less about keeping trivia and more about keeping clarity. And that's where the next thing comes in, mental stimulation. A fancy term for keeping your brain from turning into mashed potatoes. No offense to mashed potatoes. You sit down with a puzzle, not the 5,000-piece one your overachieving niece brought you, but something reasonable. You do Sudoku in pen just to feel dangerous. You read the news, filter out the drama, and file away a weird fact about how jellyfish technically don't die, they just reboot. And suddenly, you feel it. Your brain stretching like a cat in the sun. Science backs this up, of course. Lifelong learning actually creates new neural pathways, which means your brain literally changes shape to accommodate new knowledge. It's neuroplasticity, baby. Some researchers even argue that picking up a new skill like learning a language or playing an instrument can delay cognitive decline for years. Others say it's more about engagement than the activity itself. Either way, it works. Your brain is not a storage unit. It's a garden. You either water it, or you get weeds. You remember hearing once that London cab drivers have larger hippocampi, the part of the brain linked to spatial memory because of how intensely they memorize city maps. It's like their GPS is biological. And while you're not planning a trip to Piccadilly Circus anytime soon, it makes you think, how often do you challenge your brain to do something hard, on purpose? Not often enough, probably. That's okay. You've still got time. Some people do crosswords. Others take online classes, write poetry, build model airplanes, or join trivia night at the bar even if they never know any of the answers. What matters is the effort. And the effort feels good, like that buzz you get when you remember the name of that actor from that show in the 70s without Googling it. And yes, you've noticed how some people seem to just give up on learning. What's the point? They say you nod politely, but deep down, you know that's like retiring your brain while the rest of you still works. You're not done. You're not even close. Remember when you learned to use a smartphone? At first it was chaos, buttons everywhere, apps that disappeared, voice commands that called your dentist when you just wanted to set a timer for soup, but now, you're practically a pro. You send GIFs, you Zoom, you've got opinions about streaming services. That's not just tech savviness, it's neuroplasticity in action. Still, some days are foggy. You forget a word mid-sentence and have to mime your way through it like you're in a silent film. Other days, your mind is crystal clear, slicing through conversations like a hot knife through butter. The inconsistency used to bother you, but now, you see it for what it is. Your brain asking for kindness, not perfection. Because here's the truth, your mind needs play, not pressure, not panic, just playful curiosity. The same way you once opened cereal boxes hoping for toys, you now open books, conversations, hobbies with that little glint of wonder. And when you feel that familiar tug of I'm too old for this, I want you to laugh out loud, because let's be real, that phrase is a myth sold by people who gave up too soon. You're not too old to learn. You're too wise not to, so tomorrow, maybe you try something new. A book you'd normally skip, a card game with rules you don't fully understand, or a YouTube video explaining black holes. Even if your brain goes nope halfway through, it's not about mastering it. It's about showing up to your own mind with curiosity and a cup of tea. And if you forget where you put your glasses, again, well, check your head first. You wake up one morning, and the light's coming in just right, soft, golden, a little too honest for that mirror, but still. You take a breath and stretch. There's a strange sensation you didn't expect. You actually feel, okay. Not young, not invincible, but balanced. And the older you get, the more you realize, that is the prize. Because after 65, it's not about running marathons, it's about feeling steady in your body and soul. And one of the most overlooked, most powerful ways to keep that going. Routine movement. Not exercise with capital E, not gym selfies, or punishing sweat rituals. Just movement, just honoring the body that still wakes up with you every day. Even when the knees sound like popcorn. You shuffle to the kitchen for your coffee, but you pause to roll your shoulders. Later, you walk a little farther with the dog, or with yourself. If you don't have one, you stretch while watching those dramatic baking shows that make you feel like a pastry emergency is the worst thing that could happen. Spoiler, it's not. Science has a lot to say here. Regular low-impact movement walking, Tai Chi, gentle yoga has been shown to reduce inflammation, improve balance, and boost mood by flooding your brain with feel-good chemicals. In fact, some studies claim walking 30 minutes a day is as effective as antidepressants in some older adults. But no, that doesn't mean you should stop your meds and sprint down the driveway. Here's a weird fact. Flamingos can sleep standing on one leg because their balance improves when they engage certain muscles we barely use. That's not just show-off berg behavior, it's a reminder that stability is muscle memory. And the older we get, the more that memory matters. Falling isn't funny anymore, unless it's metaphorical and involves a slice of cake. And yes, some experts still argue over which kind of movement is best for seniors. Cardio, resistance bands, aquazumba. But the truth is, whatever you'll actually do regularly is the best one. If dancing in your living room to disco counts, and it does, you're already ahead. You remember that time you tried chair yoga and pulled a muscle you didn't know existed. Or when you joined that walking group but spent most of the time gossiping under trees. Still, your body moved. Your heart pumped. You remembered you have a body. not just a mind floating around, worrying about grandkids and grocery coupons. It's not about burning calories. It's about respecting your body as a living, breathing participant in your life. It's been through surgeries, heartbreak, bad couches, and miraculous recoveries. It deserves your care. Not punishment, not shame, just care. Maybe your movement today is stretching your hands before making soup. Maybe it's tending a garden, which studies show can reduce cortisol levels and improve hand strength. Plus, dirt under your nails makes you look like you've been up to something wholesome. Or suspicious. Either way, charming. Other days, your movement is mental, deciding not to sit still in fear, choosing to get out of the recliner when it would be easier to sink, taking 2 trips from the car with groceries instead of 1, just to hear your body thank you later. Because movement, done with kindness, is the closest thing we have to a daily restart button. It tells your brain, hey, I'm still here. Let's do this. And sure, you might creak and groan and invent new curse words when your joints protest, but that's just your body's way of saying it's awake. You're awake. There's a quiet rebellion in choosing to keep moving when the world expects you to slow down. When people say take it easy, you smile and say, I am. Just not still. So maybe tomorrow, you dust off that old bike. Or walk a few laps at the mall and call it climate-controlled cardio. Or you put on music from 1967 and dance like no one's watching because no one is. Except maybe the cat, and he already thinks you're weird. You move, not because you should, but because you can. And that, my friend, is everything. You're sitting by the window again. Same spot, same chair. But something's different. You feel it, even if you can't quite name it. It's not just another morning in your post-65 routine. There's a stillness, yes, but also a kind of hum, a vibration in the background that whispers, you are not done yet. Because there's one final piece you've come to understand. Maybe the hardest and softest of them all. Connection, not networking. Not chit-chat, not just Facebook, birthday reminders. I'm talking about the real stuff, the kind that makes you feel human, seen, needed. Even loved on days when your hair refuses to cooperate. You remember something your neighbor once said, we don't outgrow the need for each other. We just get worse at asking. And wow, wasn't that a punch to the soul? So you start slow. You call someone, not because there's something urgent, but because their name popped into your head during your toast. You visit the community center, even though you think bingo is a scam. You wave back at the teenager down the street who skateboards past your mailbox like life's a movie he's starring in. And little by little, you feel it. That ache inside the one you thought was just arthritis is, because you're not just tending to your joints or your brain or your blood sugar. You're tending to your heart, and science, in its ever logical way, backs this up. Strong social ties have been shown to increase life expectancy, reduce risk of dementia, and even strengthen the immune system. Basically, hugs are medicine. Here's a bizarre one for you. Octopuses have neurons in their arms, but when isolated, they become lethargic and sad. Even with 8 limbs, they still need emotional touch. We're not so different. Really though, you've got fewer suction cups. Experts still argue over whether it's quality or quantity of relationships that matters most in later life. But one thing they agree on. Isolation is a slow, sneaky thief, and it rarely knocks before entering. That's why you notice the small gestures now. The mail carrier who remembers your name. The way your cousin sends you weird cat videos unprompted. The neighbor who brings you soup even though it's 90 degrees out because apparently, it's healing and contains turmeric. You eat it anyway. You've stopped asking yourself whether you're a burden. You realize that letting people help you is its own kind of gift. That vulnerability is not weakness, it's a bridge, and you've built enough bridges to walk back and forth across the years with a steady step. You forgive yourself for the friendships that faded, the phone calls you never returned. There's still time. There's always time to reconnect, if not with them, then with yourself. Because connection isn't always social. Sometimes, it's spiritual, a walk in nature where the trees feel like old friends. A quiet moment with a photo of someone who's gone, but not gone. A breath so deep it makes your ribs stretch like they've been waiting. And some days, your connection is silly. Laughing at your own text typos. Rewatching the same movie you've seen 20 times because it ends right. Talking to your plants, like they're roommates. They don't talk back, but honestly, that's for the best. It hits you one afternoon. As you sit under that string of patio lights that hasn't worked since '08. You are not meant to go through life unnoticed. Even now, especially now. Your presence is a gift not just to others, but to yourself. You've cultivated the mind, the body, the habits, the growth. And now, you've reopened the door to something deeper than self-care. You've returned to community, and no matter how old the world says you are, that's the thing that keeps you truly alive. Now, let's slow down together. You let your eyes close not to sleep, just to soften the view. You feel the air move gently around you, the way it always has, but now you notice it. It carries no urgency. Only presence. Only breath. The fan hums in the corner, steady like a lullaby from the present moment. You've traveled far today through memory, through meaning, through what it takes to live not just longer, but better. And maybe you realize, this whole time, it wasn't about adding more years to your life. It was about adding more life to your years. Each little thing: eating well, moving kindly, thinking sharply, staying curious, reaching out, none of them magical on their own, but together, they weave something sacred. They make your days softer, brighter, less afraid, and maybe, now, finally, you give yourself permission to release the grip on how everything should look. You realize you've done enough. You are enough. You've aged, yes, but you've also ripened. The way good wine does. The way stars do. In their final, brilliant years. Don't let go now. Not from the world, but from the pressure. From the fear that you're behind. You're exactly where you're meant to be, wise, weathered, wonderfully human. And as the light fades outside your window, and the hum of evening settles around you, you feel it clearly. You are still growing, still glowing, still here.